especially if you're making that transition from 9 to 5 into full-time entrepreneurship, or even if you're just still treating your side business. I don't like the term side business or side hustle, converting it over to a formal LLC. But this is going to help you with that transition. That book helped. I wish I had this book when we became full-time entrepreneurs, hence why I wrote it for other entrepreneurs that's making that transition. So in this video specifically, though, we're going to be talking about one of the early chapters, which is insufficient financial planning. And as you can see, Carissa is going to be kind of just diving into it a little bit and going through some of the words and some of the language in that chapter to just come up with some questions that most people have, or some thoughts that people have when you're talking about insufficient financial planning. And one of the first things that you want to have when doing a business and transition is, for one, making sure that you have enough revenue coming in to cover replacing your job, but also to cover all the expenses and things that come along with that. And in that chapter, we kind of deep dive into that. And one of the first things I tell people or coach people on is you want to have a budget, an actual physical budget. So whether you're using it, old school Excel spreadsheet, or you're still writing it down on paper, whatever the case may be, you want to have a budget of all the money coming in and then all the money coming out in the form of expenses or dividends or owner distributions. You want to have that.
Yeah, so I think it's easy to think, oh, okay, well, this money's coming in, but then you don't keep track of how much money's going out. And I think it can quickly become kind of overwhelming and confusing, or you're like, well, I think I made some money, or I'm not quite sure if I made any money. And if you don't keep track and don't budget and know what's coming in and what's going out, it can kind of get messy very quickly.
Yeah.
I see here you have a example of a business budget template. That can be, I guess, based off how you like to organize, what works best for you. Do you like an Excel spreadsheet? Do you like, QuickBooks to categorize things, which we do use QuickBooks. It's really user friendly. What are some things that you suggest people put in their business budget?
And you're in everything, what I'm saying? I tell people all the time, for not only for your tracking purposes, but for tax purposes, that when you go file your taxes, whatever, either yearly or quarterly, whatever, how you have your entity set up, it'll show you how you should file and which time frame you should file in. But regardless of that, for tax purposes, the budget is going to help you with that. And even further than that, like Caress mentioned, QuickBooks is a platform that we use that keeps track of all that, not only daily but throughout the year. And with QuickBooks, it's very user friendly and simple, especially starting out as small business owners, where all the money coming in, you have it attached to your bank account. It'll calculate all that money coming in, revenue, and then also where you can track expenses going out. And simple as literally taking a picture, uploading it to QuickBooks, and it'll categorize it for you. So one of the first things in that chapter is we talk about the importance of having a budget template, and we put one in the book so you can use that as a guide.
Yeah, and I think one of the some little things that you may not think about when you're stepping into entrepreneurship is like, where's my health insurance going to come from? Am I going to have enough to cover, what does he have in here? Bank service charges and credit card fees, delivery charges, like things like that. But if you have a budget and and you are able to plan ahead and see what's coming in and out, you're able to plan for those things. Because I think health insurance was a big thing that, we had to figure out, okay, well, are we going to be able to strategically afford that on top of all the other business expenses that we might have? And I also like how, for tax purposes, like you said, is being able to identify what are those expenses and categorizing them. Because I think I made a mess of mine by not putting stuff into detailed categories.
Yeah, and once again, that's for not only for you, but for tax purposes. Again, people talk about write-offs, and certain things you can write off, certain things you cannot. So, categorizing your expenses not only helps you with future planning purposes of your business to see, where you can either cut costs, or you want to put more money towards marketing dollars or hire employees, categorizing it kind of snapshots if that's feasible or not. And you want to categorize them, just not kind of flowing in any and every which way, even though you're tracking it, but you want to categorize those expenses.
Mm-hmm. And you also talked about a contingency plan and having a contingency plan for unexpected emergencies, things that unexpected expenses that you may not have thought might come into play, but you definitely want to be able to address those. and not just be stuck and try and figure out, well, where do I go from here. Definitely want to have a buffer in place.
Yeah, and I always tell people that, like they tell you in your personal expenses and budget, you want to have 6 months of reserve, just in case anything happens with your job, your career. Same thing with your business. You want to have, a good 3 to 6 months of reserves to kind of hold, just in case anything happens with revenue and cash flow. Things happen, and not
Slow
it's a
season,
if.
fast season.
Yeah, you got your peak season depending on what your service or product is. But regardless of that, you're going to have your up and down season. You want to have those cash reserves to be able to cover that. And also, when you're going to banks, once again, from a personal experience, if you're going out to get loans or funding or things, that they want to see that you have some form of cash reserves that you can suffice if something happens, and they can get their money back. So it's always good to have that nest egg of reserves.
Mm-hmm. And then being adaptable, making sure that you are open and flexible to different changes that might happen in your business. So like you said, if you do have, slow season versus a season where you have a lot of income coming in, but you need to be able to take that money and plan for, a time where the money's not coming in and you're trying to figure out where to go from there. So you definitely want to be open to adjusting your budget as needed and being flexible with that.
Yeah, so like I say, in this chapter, there's a lot of things that we highlight and deep dive into on insufficient financial planning. So get a copy of the book, or you feel free to ask questions in the comments. I'll be happy to answer them specifically. But I just kind of wanted to highlight that chapter, and I'll put that chapter early for a reason, because one of the things or mistakes that people make is that they see that they're making, let's say, once again, for example, $100,000 a year in their revenue, and they're like, oh, well, I can use this to kind of replace my job. I'm making enough money, but they're not factoring in all the things that we kind of talked about. So, one of the key takeaways is that budget template that's in there, having those expenses calculated is going to let you know really how much money you're making on top of the 100,000 or after expenses. That's the number you want to look at. Just like with your job, you have a gross and net. It's the same thing with your business. You have a general revenue, and then you have what's left over after everything is paid. And your salary may or may not be in it. That's something that you want to factor in as well. So we appreciate you guys tuning in and looking with us in depth of that chapter. We'll be probably reviewing each chapter of the book in the weeks to come. But
look forward to hearing some questions too.
Look forward to hearing some questions.
Some feedback, or what are some concerns that you have before making the jump and making the leap.
Yeah, and if you have any questions specifically on that topic, insufficient financial plan, I'd be happy to answer them. But just get a copy of it. Thank you for the support in advance, and we'll see you on the next video.